So there's no light. How do we know if we're on? We're on? We're on? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the City of Washington Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, to begin tonight, can we have a,
Pledge allegiance.
no, can we have a call the meeting to order? And then we'll have a roll call.
Okay. All right, so roll call.
Yep.
We have Dan Cassett,
Here.
Bob Zurich,
Yes.
Bob Kleppel,
Here.
Kevin Creedy,
Here.
Nick Obermark, Jeff Patke, Tessie Steffens,
Here.
Sparky Stuckenschneider, Debbie Todebush, Dave Waymeyer, Betty Werner, Gavin Woolley. Okay.
Now we'll have a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One
nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In front of you, you have the minutes from February 12th. Hopefully you've read them. And I know there's one correction. Casey said that, right, Casey, you said that Debbie Todebush is listed in attendance, and she was not in attendance. So I think that could be the only correction, unless anyone else has one. And if not, then can I get a motion to approve in a second?
Make a motion to, go ahead.
Second.
Either way.
Okay,
Wide
so
open. Arm.
we have a motion by Kevin and a second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, park report.
Okay, park report. Spring soccer started, well, it was supposed to start last weekend. Fields are marked. I walked the fields with Chad on Friday, and Sarah from the Youth Soccer Association was up there, and she had decided at that time that the league, they wouldn't have games the next day, even though it was going to be a nice day. The fields were just too saturated. I was actually surprised that we ever got them marked in time for, to have games last Saturday, but we did. So those games, I believe, will be made up tomorrow, I believe. So they should have really nice weather tomorrow, and the fields will be nice and dry by then, too. So, Arbor Day, I think I mentioned it last week, or last month, is going to be April 18th. That's a Saturday. It's going to be at Miller Post. We're still working out some of the details, but that's the date. We'll be up there, and hopefully we have a little better weather than last year.
What time will you guys be up there?
Still working that out.
Okay,
It's in motion.
okay.
I think from what we've been discussing, based on the activities that we're looking at, it'd be starting earlier in the morning, not super early, but mid-morning, and then maybe to lunchtime or so. But I will get back to you with that information as soon as we get everything finalized. We have collected applications, and we have started the interview process for the ball field prep position, which is a full-time position that lines the baseball fields in the summertime. That was new. If you guys remember last year, the youth organization asked the city to take that back over, and so we were able to do that, but we have a full-time staff member dedicated to that, working weekends and getting the fields ready on the weekends, and then they're off a couple days during the week. So we are interviewing for that. So far, the applications look pretty good, better than last year, so that's a good sign.
Good.
And so we'll be moving along with that. And then we're also in hiring time for the seasonals. We have we have 2 returners coming back, and we have applications for a couple other guys that one or a couple of those. One of the returners, and then one of the possible new ones has some ball field experience, so that's good. That'll help out too. And then the only other thing I have in my report would be, I was hoping to have it ready for this meeting. It's probably actually sitting in my inbox. I just haven't been able to get to my inbox today, is I have a sign for the dog park, a rendering of what the sign would look like, and so I'll send it out once I get it ready, once we're finalized on it, send it out just so you guys can see what it looks like, throw any thoughts, questions my way, and then hopefully we can get that in place this spring, and that'll be one of the final pieces over there. So that is all I have at this time.
Any questions? Okay. No communication from the audience. So under old business, dog park, which would be what we just talked about?
Just a little more to add. Their Washington Fence Company is finishing up over there. I haven't talked to them in person, but when I stop in there in the mornings, looks like they're getting close to finishing up that project. So that'd be good. Get them out of there. I know they've been tied up. That whole area over there, as some of you guys know, is pretty low, and it's muddy and difficult to work in sometimes. So I know that's delayed them some, but I think we're nearing completion there. And that's all. I think that's it for dog park.
Any questions? Okay. Locking the fairground gates.
Just a little update on that. It was a little rough from the start. I think it's gotten better. Gavin, you might be able to shed some light on it.
Yeah, it's a whole lot better. They seem to be getting, they're open, by the time I walk over there. So, sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's in the afternoon, but they are open. Question for you: why is it that we closed the gate between the parking lot and the soccer fields?
That was just a gate we closed to kind of help, if they did get up in there, to kind of limit their way out, just kind of cut down on the options on where they can go. Because it seemed like it would be easy for them to, if someone did spot them and they wanted to get out of there pretty quick, to dart in through all the buildings and not be as seen easily.
Gotcha.
If it's causing a problem, we could probably reopen it.
I walked through there and I had them loosen up the chain a little bit.
Oh.
I can get my big old self through.
When I walked
no.
through there, this morning about 10:30, the big gate was open there by the restrooms, and the small gates were open all around the park. And I heard somebody comment up, I won't mention who, but he expressed his opinion. Most of us in this room probably know who I'm talking about, but up at Rothschild's one morning, he says he thinks it's terrible that we're locking the gates. He says, and I says, well, first off, we're not locking them during the day.
Right.
If people want to visit the park, they can do that during the day. Of an evening, they have no business in that park. So, he was kind of upset by it, but
I knew it was probably going to be a little bit of a hot
Yeah.
topic, but when the paper did the article, if you guys are on Facebook, I started reading some of those comments, and most of them were in our favor. And
Sure.
a lot of them were disappointed that then it kind of goes off in tangents. Parents or people are disappointed that they're not disciplining their kids enough, and yada yada yada. But from what I saw, most of them were siding with us. It's just a shame that we had to do it, but it's not like we're saying it's totally off limits. No one can ever go in there. You can go in there during the day.
Yeah.
The park's closed at 11.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, all our parks, close at midnight technically. So.
One of your employees told me this morning that somebody threw a bunch of beer bottles and
Yes, I heard about that late in the day. So yeah, we spent some time cleaning up beer bottles from basically the dam all the way up to the bathrooms, basically. So.
Or on Veterans Drive,
Yeah.
smashing them on the.
Yeah, I guess they were tossing them out the truck or whatever. And
I got a question for you. The main gate there by the restroom there, when you come into the side where the Mercy has her building, all this stuff, what I'm talking about, the ball field there. Mm-hmm. The one fence right there by the gate, there is no top rail on that. I don't know if that,
by the bathroom there?
right by the bathroom there, it's missing a top rail. It's just that small section, maybe 6 foot, but everyone else has got one on it, so I figured this,
Yeah, I don't know. We can look into it, yeah. I don't know what happened. Who knows? It may be missing for a long time and no one ever noticed it till now.
Does that get taken down during the fair at all? Do you know, not knowing exactly
think
what
so.
you're
I think it's
talking
up
about?
there.
You
I
know,
think-
sometimes they take,
Because we funnel everyone to the concession stand. And so that's all gated off there. Because they actually, like, when I was doing trash this summer with the guys during the fair, they would always have to open the gate. Because everything else, I mean, everything's all, because you funnel everyone to the concession stand to pay. But yeah, I'll look into it and see here.
you know, it's the same fencing there on the bottom, has about a foot wide hole down it too, you know.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys know about it.
Any other questions concerning the fairgrounds and the gates? Okay, moving on to moving our meeting date.
Oh, yes. So that was brought up, Jeff brought that up last meeting, and I said I would look into it. And I talked to Darren Lamb about it, and we both were on the same page about it, and Casey and I talked a little bit about it. But unless Darren, our discussion was, and, you know, I feel like I've been doing a pretty good job of getting everything to you guys in a timely fashion. I just, you know, I know if something needs to go to council, then I just have to, it's up to me to plot it out to make sure it comes here first and then goes to council and that it gets done. Then, you know, if we're on a time schedule for, say, the pool or whatever, maybe playground, installing a playground, then you know, it's up to me to plan it out to make sure I hit all my dates that I need to hit. And I don't know. I think this has been working fine. Darren seemed to think it was working fine, and if it was working fine, then neither one of us saw a reason to change it. So that's kind of that's what my thinking was, unless anyone's got anything different.
Well, all right, just remind me, Jeff had suggested we move it to the last Wednesday of the month?
I think I believe that's what he said, yeah.
Like the last Wednesday of the month.
yeah.
And the main reason was just, I think, because he said if there are things done by the council that maybe they just want us to know about as opposed to telling us about, if I'm remembering this correctly.
I think to be specific, didn't you just buy an aerator?
Yes.
And we knew nothing about it.
Okay, or,
Do you know about it? Yeah. You know, and I don't know if that's something you want to let us know about, or if that's, you know, just something, you know.
Yeah, Darren and I briefly had this discussion, and maybe this is something we talk about off, you know, after the meeting or whatever, but our interpretation, I mean, because all that stuff has been put in the budget and approved by council already, is that kind of that he didn't want it getting bogged down, not that it would, but since it was already approved by council, that he didn't know, like, as far as equipment goes, that it would really need to come into
Okay.
being approved here. I mean, we can revisit that, but it could slow some things
And
down.
I have no problem with it. I just, you know, that was an example that, you know, that's basically what Jeff brought up, that, you know, knowing before it goes to council.
I mean, I understand we are just advisory, but there are times when you're out there and you don't know something when somebody asks you. And then they're like, well, aren't you on the park board? I mean, it's like, yeah.
Like equipment-wise, or
Or
like?
just anything, like, again, and it's nobody's fault. I'm not, but like, even when Mrs. Miller was here.
Yeah, that's.
You know what I mean?
Darren and I talked about
I-
that.
But it was just kind of like, so they'll say something to you and you don't know. Now, I don't want to make it any harder on staff or you. I mean, if the last Wednesday doesn't work or whatever, I understand that. But there are times, even like you said, well, but we knew about that, but that's not a good example. But I can't think of one right off, except for Mrs. Miller. And I don't care when the meeting is, because I think you're doing a great job letting us all know what's going on. But it's just those times when somebody says something to you and you're like, I don't know anything about it. And I don't, we're just advisory, so, it's not but And maybe, you want to think about, we don't have to change it like tonight. We could wait another month if you want to think about it or discuss it a little longer, or just see what your schedule is. But, I think everything's going really well. It's just, and you've done a great job. We are so informed on almost everything, you can't ask for anything better. But I don't know, that's just a thought. And not everybody's here.
No, I'm fine with leaving it as is, where is.
Okay.
And
So these three are fine leaving it, that's good. What do we have on this side?
Well, I remember Jeff's discussion about it. It had something to do with the council meeting.
We have a workshop on the first
Yeah.
Monday's workshop. That's when we
Right.
go through all the parks and the boards. That's the first Monday meeting.
Okay,
So that's why it comes up. All the department heads are here that meeting, so that would be the one.
okay. Yeah, it doesn't make me any difference. I'll go along with the majority, but I thought that's what he was saying, something about the council meeting. Okay.
Any thoughts, sir, at the end, young man?
Nope, I'm fine either way.
Well, then, we'll just leave it the way it is, I guess. If that's all right with everybody?
Is there like a flow list from departments on how things go through? Like if you have planning and zoning, it's a little more straight through. They have items come to them, they bring it to council. But I understand what you guys are saying, like with the budget stuff, I don't know how much of that goes through every department, then goes to council. I'm not sure what the flow of that is.
Yeah,
If that's an actual,
I don't either, because I haven't been in.
we can ask that question,
Yeah.
to get a handle on this, I don't, like with the fire board, I don't know how that works with them doing the radios. I know a lot of that's budgeted, a lot of that probably doesn't go on their committee end of it, that probably just goes right through,
Yeah,
so.
Or the next time Darren's here, maybe we could discuss it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And because honestly, he'd have more answers.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right, yeah, that's true.
Okay, well, then currently, right now, we're going to leave it the way it is.
It sounds like the odd thing is the exception, not the rule.
Right.
Things pop up, they're gonna
Well,
pop up if
and-
we move the meeting anyway.
right,
Yeah, and if equipment is budgeted and things like that, that's, get it, go for it, get as much as, I don't think that, there's just, and I'm sorry, I just can't think of some of the other things where it would be like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know about that.
Well, I noticed a few of the first meetings when we were dealing with the water,
Go down, at-
waterworks, it kind of seemed a little backwards where we would talk about it at council, then we come here. We would,
right.
we kind of already, I thought, talked about this, so, I understand what you're saying, it just kind of.
Well, and sometimes some stuff comes up and it does go backwards, but then there are other things that do come up, the council or whatever, you know what I mean? But, and we're not like this very powerful board, but, you know what I mean?
advisory at best.
Advisory, yeah, but it would still be good to know some things
Well, that's what every board is.
Well,
before the point, but we'll see how it goes. We'll just we can always change it if we need to. Okay.
All right.
New business.
New business, so aquatic facility update. Some of you guys already know this since you're on the aquatic facility committee, but we received 3 responses to our RFQ that we put out for the new aquatic facility, and looks like 3 good firms that all build pools, and a number of them teamed up. So they were tracking on how many companies downloaded the bid document or the RFP off Landmark's website, and they had 25, 30 companies. And then when we found out when they were all due, found out a number of the companies teamed up with engineering firms and civil engineering and things like that. So when we say we have 3 firms, we have 3 main firms and then a lot of other people working together, like a lot of local companies, engineering firms and things have kind of grouped together. So we had an aquatics facility update meeting yesterday afternoon, and they received this information. And then as far as where we go from here, an RFP will go out next week, so the week of the 9th. And that'll be issued to the 3 firms. And then in March and April, we'll meet with them. The staff will meet with them. Landmark, Cochran, myself, Darren, the admin staff. We'll meet with those firms because they'll have a lot of questions. There'll be 2 different meetings where we meet with them about design. And they'll ask a lot of questions, pick our brains. And then the RFP is due April 20th. And so on April 20th, then we should have 3 different pool concepts and pretty pictures and things for people to look at. And then a selection will have to be made from there. So that's kind of where we are with that. Things are moving along. We're staying on track right now because we're not dealing any there's no issues with the weather right now because it's all meetings and, internal stuff. So everything's rolling along.
What was the date? April?
April 20th is when they're due.
The hope is that we'll have our season this year, and then the pool will close August 1st. And then within that week, if, all goes well, then they will begin, and they'll work on the new pool, and then the season will open again, hopefully. Weather determines everything, but by next May.
Yeah, next
So
Memorial Day.
they've got it pretty well laid out. It just depends now if weather cooperates, and once we get the design and different things like that. There's still a lot of things they got to do, but it's going very well.
Tessie, is this new aquatic thing, is this going to be basically the same size as what we have here?
Well, we have, basically, it's like X amount of money that we have to spend. We don't want to go under the volume of water that we have, but that's what we're going to look at when they present these designs. I don't think it's going to be smaller than what we have, but it might be laid out differently, like.
Okay.
And it might not have, we're hoping that it has a lot of good features to it, but like, for example, depending on cost, we might have a splash pad versus,
Lazy River.
yeah, a lazy river. You know what I mean? And things like that. There's a huge list taken from way back from when we had meetings for the public, you know what I mean? And then the committee, and so basically now these companies that will be coming up with ideas and stuff have a 6-page list of things that everybody, now, we know that it's not all gonna happen.
Right.
And some of it we might already have, but, and then we'll go from there. But it's not, it's gonna be very similar, I would.
Yeah, one of the main requirements is currently we have approximately 10,000 square feet of water, and that's one of the requirements we're putting in the RFP is that we want a new pool with approximately 10,000 square feet of water.
Yeah.
Another thing that was brought up in the meeting yesterday, and that the fact that I think there's a lot more consideration in reusing the existing pool house, one way or another. As far as, it was mentioned that, perhaps Parks offices on the upper level and then using the lower level due to handicapped accessibility for the pool itself. But, once again, that, all will be dependent upon what comes back from the companies. Which I think is, good use of resources myself.
Any other questions about the pool? Okay. Mowing.
Next is contracted mowing. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we did our last contract, I should say. We were at the end of our 3rd option year, I think it was. And so we needed to do something this year, and there's some parts moving in the background, but short story is we're going out for a 1-year contract with an option year for 21 and 22. I don't think we'll use 21 and 22, but we threw it in there just in case. I think that is something the city wants to bring back in-house, and so we'd be doing all our own mowing again, and so there's some things set in motion in the background that will come to light later on down the road, later this year probably. But for now, we do have a RFP out for contracted mowing, and we'll see how those come back. So we have a pre-bid meeting on Friday. So just wanted to make you aware of that. Next on out of new business, painting freight building and caboose. I'm still working on it. You probably heard me talk quite a bit about the caboose recently, and then I worked with Darren Lamb. Since the waterworks thing is not really happening anymore, there was some money there that I asked if we weren't going to do the waterworks, or if we're not going to do the waterworks, if we could use a little bit of that money to paint the freight building, which is kind of bad shape. And he said yes. So we have solicited 3 bids for the painting of the freight building, and so we should be moving forward with that this spring. So it'd be nice to get freight building and the caboose all painted, and that whole area down there spruced up a little bit.
For the caboose, because it's kind of dirty inside, is that going
Yes.
to be cleaned out too?
It can be. It's in much.
It's-
This has been a hot topic since
It is
June.
a hot topic.
It's in. I do have to say it's in much better shape than it was this summer. When we got our first complaint about it, there was all kinds of trash in there and some old. I think they're like wooden brochure racks or something, where you couldn't even see through it. And so all that stuff's gone. The only thing left to do, I think, there is a fine layer of dust over everything, just because no one ever gets in there. But yeah, we can clean that up a little bit, because initially when the complaint came in this summer, I was like, well, we can solve this real quick. I'll just tint the windows and no one will see in there. And it can be as nasty as it wants to be in there. But
There's not access to the interior of that, is
no, both
No.
doors are chained shut. And then I.
Go up and look in, and it was pretty bad.
Yeah, and so this caboose thing has been a hot topic since June. And so, like, the other day I was coming back from the state conference, and I went through Herman, and so I stopped to look at their caboose. And then Valley Park has one near my kid's school, and all the other cabooses have, like, frosted windows so you can't see in them, except for ours. And like I said, I was going to tint them so you couldn't see in them. But now, out of the complaint, the initial complaint, I think the lady did have a valid point, because I kind of been watching as I drive by there. There are a lot of kids that do run up there to look in there and kind of see what it looks like in there. So I'm happy with leaving the windows clear now. We can spruce it up a little bit. Long-term thinking, there has been some forethought on making that a little more presentable and usable space possibly. We had the landscaping blocks, the pathway, the walkway that are landscaping blocks. They were uneven this winter. We leveled those out. When we did that, we ran electrical conduit under there over to the caboose. And next holiday season, I'd like to, and I bought some lights on sale this year after Christmas was over, to light it. And then I talked with the street department. They have 2 wreaths that they could give us to put on either end of it and make it look kind of nice for the holidays. And then downtown, they have Santa comes in on Amtrak.
Right, so you could do pictures.
They'd have to work through the logistics, but we could possibly open it up, if we cleaned it up, to them to have Santa Claus inside there maybe, so.
Right, nice,
See, yeah.
good.
Is the depot gonna stay the same color?
I don't know. Do you have a color request?
No?
I hadn't really thought about
Tired of
that.
the yellow.
I hadn't really thought
Quite
about
that
it.
bright a yellow, huh?
I don't know if that's like historical, I know that building's old.
Well, there's gotta be more than one historical color.
Agree with you.
So no preference on any color?
No-
just
no preference.
Besides yellow.
That's different.
Tired of yellow.
Let me look into
It's
that.
kinda like the pavilion out at the park. Get tired of looking at that green.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let me look into that. I hadn't really thought about that, so.
And I don't know, the girls or whoever did the auditorium, those colors are nice.
Oh, I don't know who did that.
Yeah, those colors are,
Right.
yeah, nice.
Because it was green too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Between that color and a color, like a blue, we chose that one.
I could tell somebody with good taste did that. No, it does look nice.
Yeah, it does. It does look a lot better. Okay. And then last thing under new business is the next meeting. There's a meeting in here, I'm not exactly sure what all, but I think it has to do with Marbach, Germany. And long story short, we got bumped from our room. And so we'll be upstairs on the third floor. And if we have an attendance like this, there should be no problem fitting everyone in there. And even if everyone does show up, I think we should be fine. So the only thing, there won't be a recording of it. We don't have cameras up there or audio or anything like that. So it'll just be minute notes. And I did run that by the mayor and Darren and asked if they were okay with that. And neither one of them said, oh, no, you can't do that. So
So, right, our next meeting would be April 1st.
Are you sure?
No, because that's April Fool's Day. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking
Are you
that.
just kidding?
I'm just kidding. Okay, any new business that anybody on the board? Gavin?
Wayne, I saw an ad in the paper for a field maintenance position.
yes.
How did that go?
So that's, I think that's the one, the ball field prep.
Yes, yeah.
So I don't know how many applications we received off the top of my head. A number, like more than 5, so that's
Good.
Last year we didn't receive very many, and the ones we did receive weren't that great. So this year we received more, and now we've only had one interview so far, which was a very good one, by the way. But the applicants seem they have more skills that we could use and have played baseball and do have some field prep experience. So I believe we'll wind up in a good position. We should.
Good.
So.
Okay. Any other questions?
That was the first thing.
If you don't mind, last time we met, we talked about the new playground equipment and all that, and the concern that some people had, I think Jeff was one of them, about the foul balls type thing. And I want to bring up old news here, but I just got back from SeaWorld down in Florida, and what occurred to me is I was riding some roller coasters, and later on I went underneath some of these roller coasters, and I saw what appeared to be some sort of a netting there, and I assumed it was for people who might have dropped some change, something like that. And I kept thinking, I wonder, I looked at some other things online, and I see where some other cities have done these children's parks, and in some areas they have this netting. Now, I'm not talking about over the ball field, away from the ball field, but right there above the front part of that park where the kids would be. That could be something that could catch maybe the foul balls or whatever, or protect the kids. Does anybody, I know we talked about something like a netting or something before, but, I was just wondering if anybody ever thought about that.
I think Marthasville has it at their ballpark over there. I think they have a net over there because their playground's right behind the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think someone mentioned that.
Their netting is connected to the ball field, though.
Yeah, this would be separate maybe, I don't know, but
Okay.
it wouldn't be right there at the ball, it would be closer to the playground equipment.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Now, is that a shade factor as well, or strictly
It could be.
protective?
This was a shade factor because it was a darker net, and it, when you went under it, it was certainly shaded from the sun, and I thought, well, it catches some, change up there, or whatever.
That's what I was thinking too, instead of, worrying about catching a fly ball, put one of those tension shade, a couple of those things up there, those triangle shapes, and give the kids some shade, make it looks a little decorative, and
Yeah.
provide some safety to them too, so
Yeah.
there's some other options we can look at.
Because I
They'll
tell you,
serve two purposes.
Kent Getz is highly concerned about them foul balls. He talked to me about that this weekend. He said, look at that trees there, because that saves a lot of them, but he is really concerned about that out there.
Okay.
We have other playgrounds and parks. Is there a reason we can't just close that one and tear it out and put it back in the same spot? I mean, we got Crow Park, the All Abilities Park, and a few other ones. It's not like that's our only playground park. Is there a reason we can't just close that one
I think
and put it
they
back
run
in
the,
the
they
same
run the
spot?
summer program out of the,
Well, they do the
Pavilion.
summer program out there, and then when you rent the pavilion, a lot of family, that's a parks used.
I think
I
you
think-
Oh,
misinterpret.
he wants to just put the equipment back.
Right.
Right.
Exact same spot where the,
The biggest excuse, or biggest reason was so it was closer to the bathrooms.
Right.
Because it's too far to walk to the bathroom.
Right. And we would have.
Kind of late in the
And
game.
I would argue that, I mean,
We'd have to put a fence.
Late in the
up
game?
If it's
yeah.
where it's at.
And they're talking
I
about
mean,
fence on High Street.
we're trying to get them as close to, we're trying to keep the old ones open while we do the new ones. But, I mean, we're getting them as close as we can to they're really not that much further north than where the current ones are. Or west or whatever, I guess it would be. But, I mean, I'm doing everything we can to push them down the hill as much as, I mean, when I started this, they were way up in that triangle, you know, and that was very obvious up there, you know, and we got them down now right there at the edge of the pavilion. But if you look at it, I mean, they're really going to be right next, just west of where the current ones are, except for that one is a little bit further over towards the pool parking lot. It'll be a little bit closer to the pavilion there.
Is there any way to add additional netting at the ball field to stop?
Well, we talked about that last time too. Jeff said, you know, we have the new infield coming up in '23, I think it was. And we talked about when we do that, possibly putting up some netting there too. And we, excuse me, talked about planting trees along that walkway too. Now that we can't plant a tree the size of the one that's there now.
Right, yeah.
Obviously, it'd take them a while to get that big. You know, there's other options too, like you mentioned, shade structure and things like that, so.
Well, maybe a shade structure might, once they're in place, maybe we could, maybe an organization might want to contribute a shade structure, which would be, we'll
Yeah.
just see, but that might be a
Not
possibility.
sure, but check also, we're in the process of putting a playground in Tootso too. If you do the shade structure, I think there's something with, if you get a letter from a, bleep blank here, skin doctor, can't think of the official term.
Dermatologist.
Thank you. There's something with that also, for being on the sun, if you can get a letter from a dermatologist. I'll look at my notes, I'll get with you.
Okay.
But there's something along that lines, because we were looking at something like that also.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I could go back to the playground.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, any other questions, concerns? If not, then I would like a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
All right, we have
Second it?
Bob and Gavin, we have okay, and we will see everyone on April 1st.
Sure.
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 Yeah.
Back.